The forest was shaking, not from thunder, not from artillery, but from something heavier, something mechanical, something that rolled like doom itself. 3 silhouettes emerged through the drifting smoke of a ruined European village in 1944. Their massive steel bodies crushed brick, timber, and hope beneath their tracks. They were not ordinary tanks. They were Tiger I tanks, Germany's most feared armored beasts of World War II, and standing in their path was one man, alone, no backup, no reinforcements, no retreat. What happened in the next 15 minutes would be whispered about in barracks, recorded in after-action reports, and debated by historians for decades, because no one expected him to survive. And yet, he did far more than survive. It was late autumn 1944. The air in northeastern France was wet and heavy, clinging to uniforms and equipment alike. The once quiet farming village of Lavox, its stone cottages shattered, its church tower reduced to a jagged stump, had become another anonymous scar in the long, brutal campaign following the Allied landings at D-Day. Weeks earlier, waves of Allied soldiers had stormed the beaches of Normandy, tearing open Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Now, the fight had moved inland, into hedgerows, forests, and towns where every crossroads could become a death trap. German resistance had hardened, and among the most terrifying weapons deployed to slow the Allied advance were the Tiger tanks, nearly 60 tons of armored supremacy, armed with the devastating 80-pounder cannon capable of destroying enemy armor at ranges others could not even comprehend. Private First Class Daniel Mercer of the U.S. Army's 30th Infantry Division had not expected to be alone that morning. His platoon had moved before dawn, slipping through a patch of forest east of Lavox, tasked with securing the crossroads beyond the village. Intelligence suggested light resistance, perhaps a rear guard, maybe a few anti-tank guns. But war rarely follows intelligence reports. When the first shell landed, it didn't scream. It cracked the sky open. The explosion tore through the tree line, shredding branches and bodies alike. Mercer remembered the sudden absence of sound in his left ear, the taste of dirt in his mouth, and the sight of Sergeant Hollis spinning to the ground, as if someone had cut invisible strings holding him upright. The ambush was precise. German artillery pinned them. Machine gun fire sliced through attempted movement. In the chaos, squads became fragments. Radios were smashed. Orders dissolved into survival. Mercer crawled behind the remains of a stone wall, clutching his M1 rifle, heart pounding against his ribs like it wanted escape. When he finally dared to lift his head, the forest edge ahead was eerily still. Then came the sound, low, rhythmic, metal grinding against earth. At first he thought it was thunder rolling across distant hills. But the vibration under his elbows told a different story. Something massive was approaching. He had heard veterans describe it, the distinct mechanical growl of German heavy armor. And then, through the haze of smoke drifting from burning farmhouses, he saw it. The squared turret, the wide tracks, the monstrous barrel extending like the finger of judgment. A tiger eye, behind it another, and then a third. 3 tigers moving in staggered formation down the narrow road toward the village center. Their gray armor was scarred but unbroken, black cross insignias visible against the steel. Each tank weighed nearly 57 tons and was protected by armor so thick that most Allied anti-tank weapons struggled to penetrate it from the front. Mercer's division had been briefed on them. Avoid frontal engagement, aim for the sides, hit the tracks if possible. But briefings feel different when you are staring at nearly 180 tons of advancing steel, with nothing but a portable rocket launcher and fading hope. Mercer glanced around, no sign of his platoon, no sign of armor support, just him and 3 tigers. Beside him, partially buried in debris from a destroyed supply cart, lay a weapon that would decide everything, the American M1 bazooka. Lightweight compared to artillery, but capable, if used correctly, of piercing armor at close range. The problem was simple. Close range meant close to death. The Tigers advanced methodically, their commanders scanning through periscopes, gunners likely searching for movement. Infantry support followed at distance, cautious but confident. Why wouldn't they be? 3 Tigers against scattered infantry was not a battle. It was an execution. Mercer's training screamed at him to withdraw. But the crossroads behind him was critical. If those tanks broke through, they would reach the supply columns pushing forward from the beaches of Normandy. Fuel trucks, ammunition convoys, medical units. The spearhead of the Allied drive into France depended on holding that junction. He exhaled slowly. His hands trembled. Not from cowardice, but from the raw awareness of scale. A single man with a shoulder-fired rocket against 3 of the most feared tanks in the war. He checked the bazooka's tube. Loaded. He knew the Tiger's frontal armor could exceed 100 millimeters in thickness. A frontal shot was almost useless unless incredibly lucky. Side armor, however, was thinner, especially near the engine compartment. The tracks were vulnerable too. Immobilize the beast, and it becomes a steel coffin. The lead Tiger rolled past a shattered bakery, crushing broken bricks beneath its tracks. Mercer calculated distance. Too far. The bazooka's effective range required proximity, dangerously so. He needed them closer, maybe within 60 meters. Close enough to smell diesel. The second Tiger's turret rotated slightly. Mercer froze. Had they seen him? No shot came. The tanks continued forward. Unaware of the single soldier tucked behind stone and shadow, Mercer made a decision that would later be described in official reports as exceptional initiative under overwhelming odds. He began to move. Keeping low, he slipped through the rubble-strewn alleyways, using collapsed walls as cover. Each step felt amplified. Each breath seemed too loud. The ground vibrated more intensely as the Tigers approached the village square. He reached a narrow side street that angled toward the main road. If he positioned himself there, the lead tank would expose its flank as it turned. Perfect. Or suicidal. The first Tiger began its slow pivot toward the square. Mercer rose to one knee, shouldered the bazooka, and aimed at the rear side panel just above the track assembly. He could see bolts, seams in the armor plating, grime streaks from months of warfare. He squeezed the trigger. The rocket roared from the tube, trailing smoke. For a split second, time froze, then impact. A blinding flash erupted against the Tiger's side. The explosion slammed into the armor. Mercer braced for disappointment. Many bazooka rounds had failed against Tigers before. But this one struck at just the right angle. The side plate buckled. Flame burst from the engine vents. The massive tank lurched, track grinding violently as internal systems failed. Black smoke poured upward. Inside, German crew members scrambled in horror. The invincible beast was bleeding. The second Tiger halted immediately, turret swinging toward the source of the shot. Mercer had seconds, maybe less. He dropped behind rubble as the 8.8 Bubenheimer cannon fired. The blast obliterated the building behind him, showering the street in stone and dust. The concussion punched the air from his lungs. 1 Tiger crippled, 2 fully operational. And now, they knew someone was hunting them. The infantry support scattered, seeking cover. Machine guns opened fire blindly into windows and alleys. Bullets chewed through plaster and brick. Mercer reloaded with shaking hands. He had done the impossible once. Could he do it again? The second Tiger began advancing cautiously, scanning every shadow. The third tank maneuvered to gain a wider field of fire, attempting to trap whatever anti-tank threat had struck the lead vehicle. Mercer's mind raced. He could flee now. The burning Tiger created confusion, maybe enough to escape. But if he ran, the other 2 would continue. He chose to stay, because sometimes history pivots on a decision made in less than a heartbeat. He moved again, faster this time, darting through smoke toward a position near the village well. From there, if the second Tiger advanced to inspect the damaged lead vehicle, its side would be briefly exposed. The ground shook. The second Tiger rolled forward, commander partially exposed from the hatch, shouting orders in German. Smoke obscured visibility. Chaos favored the bold. Mercer rose again, aimed, fired. The rocket streaked across barely 50 meters. Impact. This time, sparks flew but no explosion followed. The armor held. The Tiger's turret snapped toward him instantly. Mercer locked eyes with the gun barrel. The 8A Bombardier cannon fired. The blast obliterated the well and everything around it. Mercer was thrown backward by the shockwave, ears ringing violently. Debris rained down. He tasted blood. The second Tiger was intact. The third was maneuvering. He had one rocket left, and 3 Tigers had now become 2 angry, hunting predators. What happened next would defy probability, physics, and every expectation of armored warfare doctrine. Because the third shot would change everything. The world had narrowed to smoke, ringing ears, and the metallic scream of engines. Private Daniel Mercer lay half, buried beneath shattered stone, lungs burning, vision blurred by dust and blood. The 88-100 shell had missed him by mere meters, but missed. In the presence of a Tiger, I was a relative term. The blast radius alone could pulp a man into history. Somewhere to his left, the first Tiger burned fiercely, its ammunition cooking off inside the hull. Occasional secondary explosions erupted like violent heartbeats, reminders that even steel monsters could die. But the other 2 were alive, angry, searching. The second Tiger rotated slowly, turret scanning the shattered village square. The third had repositioned, covering an alternate angle of fire. Together, they formed overlapping kill zones, a textbook armored response. German crews were trained for this. After years of brutal mechanized warfare across the Eastern Front, they had learned to expect the unexpected. But they had not expected one infantryman. Mercer coughed, forcing his body to move despite every instinct telling him to stay down. He checked the bazooka tube with trembling fingers. 1 rocket. Just 1. His mind replayed the failed second shot. The impact had struck the armor too squarely. The Tiger's frontal and angled side plating was designed to deflect energy. At distance, the bazooka struggled, which meant there was only one option left: get closer. Dangerously closer. He crawled through debris toward a collapsed stone barn that bordered the main road. Smoke from the first Tiger drifted thick across the square, reducing visibility for both sides. The air stank of diesel, cordite, and burning insulation. The second Tiger began creeping toward its crippled comrade. Its commander likely wanted to assess the damage or confirm the anti-tank threat had been neutralized. The third tank maintained overwatch, barrel steady, patient. Mercer reached the barn and slipped inside through a broken doorway. The roof had partially collapsed, creating shadows and concealment. Through a jagged gap in the wall, he could see the road clearly. The second Tiger was now within 40 meters, close enough to see scratches in the armor, close enough to hear shouted German commands. He steadied the bazooka on a pile of fallen beams. His breathing slowed. Training took over. Aim for the rear, aim for the engine, aim where the armor thins. The Tiger paused near its burning counterpart. A hatch opened briefly, a crewman emerging to look. That moment of distraction shifted the tank's angle slightly, exposing more of its vulnerable rear quarter. Mercer exhaled, squeezed the trigger. The rocket leapt forward in a trail of smoke and fury. Impact. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the rear of the Tiger erupted. Flame burst outward as the shaped charge penetrated the thinner engine armor. The explosion ignited fuel lines, and a shockwave rippled through the hull. The turret jerked violently. A second later, the hatch blew open and one crewman stumbled out, engulfed in fire. The second Tiger was dying. Inside the armored coffin, chaos consumed the crew. Ammunition detonated. The once dominant machine transformed into a furnace of steel and screaming. 2 Tigers down, 1 remaining. But the third tank had seen everything. Its turret snapped toward the barn. Mercer had barely time to dive sideways when the 80N Bebidnem cannon fired. The shell tore through the structure like it was paper. The explosion ripped the barn apart, beams collapsing in a storm of splinters and dust. Mercer hit the ground hard, the bazooka clattering from his hands. The world dissolved into darkness for several seconds. When awareness returned, it came with pain. His left arm throbbed, his ears rang louder than before. But he was alive. Outside, the final Tiger advanced slowly, cautiously now. Its commander had witnessed two of the Reich's most feared weapons destroyed by an unseen enemy. Confidence had shifted into tension. The Tiger halted near the ruins of the barn. Machine gunfire sprayed into the rubble, chewing through debris. Mercer rolled painfully onto his side. The bazooka lay several feet away, cracked. The tube had split along its length from the blast. Useless. He stared at it in disbelief. 3 Tigers, 2 destroyed. And now, no anti-tank weapon left. The remaining Tiger's engine roared louder as it repositioned for a clearer shot. Its turret adjusted, barrel lowering toward the rubble pile where Mercer lay. He had seconds, maybe less. His rifle would do nothing. Grenades. He checked his belt. 2 fragmentation grenades against a 57-ton tank. It sounded absurd, but there was one weakness left: tracks. Disable the tracks and the Tiger becomes immobile. And if immobilized in a hostile village, it becomes vulnerable. The tank rolled closer, crushing stone beneath its weight. Its machine gun continued spraying bursts. Mercer crawled toward the edge of the rubble, staying low as possible. He waited until the tank's side was nearly parallel to him. 30 meters, 20, 5. He pulled the pin on the first grenade, waited, counted, 3, 2, 1. He rose just enough and hurled it beneath the track assembly. The grenade bounced once, then detonated beneath the treads. The explosion sent sparks and fragments flying, but the Tiger continued moving. Not enough. He grabbed the second grenade. This time, he waited longer. The tank was nearly on top of him now, the machine gun firing directly into the rubble. He lunged from cover and threw the grenade directly into the drive sprocket near the rear track. The grenade detonated with a violent crack. For a terrifying moment, nothing changed. Then, a metallic scream. The track snapped. The massive steel chain dislodged and sagged violently as the Tiger lurched sideways. One side of the tank collapsed slightly as the damaged track jammed beneath its own weight. The 57-ton monster shuddered to a halt. Disabled, but not destroyed, the turret began rotating frantically, searching for him. Mercer ran. He sprinted toward the burning wreck of the second Tiger, ignoring the pain in his arm. Bullets kicked up dirt around him as the immobilized tank's machine gun sprayed wildly. He reached the burning hull. Flames roared from open hatches, and then he saw it. A fallen German crewman near the wreck. Beside him, a Panzerfaust, a disposable German anti-tank launcher. Mercer didn't hesitate. He grabbed it. Irony twisted into destiny. He would finish the last Tiger using its own weapon. The immobilized tank's turret rotated toward him again. The commander must have spotted movement near the wreck. Mercer positioned himself behind partial cover, raised the Panzerfaust awkwardly, unfamiliar but simple in design. He aimed for the turret ring, the thin gap where turret met hull. One shot, one chance. He fired. The warhead streaked forward. Impact. A flash of white, hot explosion erupted at the base of the turret. For a breathless moment, silence followed. Then the turret jerked violently. Smoke burst from every seam, and a second later, the Tiger exploded from within. A catastrophic ammunition detonation ripped through the hull, blasting the turret partially off its ring. Fire engulfed the vehicle as black smoke towered into the gray sky. The last Tiger was gone. 3 of the most feared tanks in the German arsenal, destroyed by 1 infantryman. The village fell silent except for crackling flames and distant echoes of retreating German infantry. Minutes later, stunned American soldiers from scattered platoons began emerging from forest cover. They stared at the burning wrecks in disbelief. No artillery strike had done this. No air support. Just wreckage. And one man standing amid smoke, holding an empty enemy launcher. In official reports, the engagement would later be described as a rare and extraordinary act of individual anti-armor combat. Commanders debated how a single soldier had eliminated 3 Tigers in under 20 minutes. Historians would later compare it to other legendary armored duels across World War II. But in that moment, there were no historians, only survivors, and the shocking realization that even the most feared war machine ever deployed by Nazi Germany could fall, not to superior numbers, but to courage. Now imagine standing alone, with 3 Tiger I tanks closing in, no backup, no escape, just one last shot. If this story gave you chills, if you felt the ground shake, then hit like so more people can discover these untold World War II stories. Comment below. Would you have stayed or retreated? And if you love cinematic war documentaries, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story might be even more unbelievable. If this story gave you chills, if you respect the courage it took to face impossible odds, hit like to honor battlefield bravery. A comment below could wow you stand your ground against 3 Tiger tanks. Subscribe for more cinematic World War II stories you won't hear anywhere else. And tell me, which battle should we cover next?